everybody. I'm Delegate Ken Plum. Welcome to our show, Virginia Report. Periodically, you know, we like to check in with local government. Our own representative on the Board of Supervisors, our good friend Cathy Hudgins, is with us tonight. Cathy, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I have to always remind you, that local government's a creature of the state. You can't move without me.
That's exactly right, and thank you.
Well, that old Dillon rule gets in the way sometimes.
That's true.
But Fairfax, many years ago, going to the urban county form of executive form of government,
Yeah.
did a smart move in that it gives you more opportunity to take on the tasks that you have to take on. And people sometimes wonder why I was in state politics. And the answer was, well, I didn't want to deal with pothole politics, but the truth of the matter is that highways are maintained by the state, and we have to be cooperative in all the various things we do.
Yeah.
But looking now at Fairfax, and one of the issues that you and I have talked about many times and challenges that we face relate to our public education program. Mm-hmm. And if there's ever a place on this earth that gives priority to to education generally, it's Fairfax County.
Well, we work at it. I want to say thank you because, we came to the General Assembly this year saying, guess what? You guys have missed it. We need more funding from the state in order to do that. And we need it because from the county standpoint, we, outside of every other county, provide more local dollars than anyone else. Mm-hmm. And it means something. It makes a difference. We do know the return in value. And so we continue to push that. Fairfax County has always had a challenge in terms of balancing the curriculum and what makes it work. And one of the things that we've come with after all of these years is to recognize if we can take care of the earliest times for learning for children, we can have good success out of the program that we have. Mm-hmm. And so early, about 5 years ago or a little bit longer, we did all-day kindergarten. Mm-hmm. We said, a half a day really isn't going to help. And we continue to make those kinds of investments because they're important. Mm-hmm. Well, over the past couple of years, we've been talking about, we have disparities. We have disparities in lots of places. Most families today, if you're a young family and both are working, we have early child care, put kids in daycare that provide enormous support for families. Mm-hmm. And those children are making a difference in terms of success than children that cannot get that. And so one of the things that I'd like to talk about is that we just developed a partnership with the schools, and we said, you know what? Mm-hmm. We're going to deliver some of these educational outcomes working hand in hand together, and we developed a successful children and youth policy team. And with that policy team, we have 2 county board members and 2 school board members working with all of the policy folks there. So we've started that piece, and that has an outcome that we all have now adopted, mm-hmm. and it is an equity, racial and equity social policy. Mm-hmm. So now together, the schools and the county, and a lot of people don't recognize, we do a lot. We do the early child care actually as a county goal. So by doing that, we want to be certain that we're working together as we make policy. When they measure outcomes, we know the impact of helping families be successful so that they can help their kids.
I think we would all agree on the proposition that we want our children to realize the greatest of their potential. There's no argument about that. But when you've got state government and you've got local school board and local board of supervisors, it has to become a collaborative effort. Exactly. And I do commend you and the Board of Supervisors and the school board for the way in which you've come together to make that happen. Back early in my career, of course, we used to appoint school board members, and that really had a downside to it. The election of school boards set up a separate board, mm-hmm. Requiring then in terms of financing to work with the Board of Supervisors, but you guys have really put that together in a successful way. Nobody can argue with the data. The data is clear. You invest in kids up front, you save yourself some money in the long run.
Right.
Now, people might say, well, when are we going to realize those savings? Well, it may be when we quit growing, because we grow so big. I am still astonished. I worked for Fairfax County Schools back when we got to 145,000 students.
Oh, yeah. We
now have 180-some thousand.
That's exactly right.
It's an enormous school system.
And it's enormous, and it's diverse. It's diverse. You can have any language you can probably think of, mm-hmm. And economics that go from the lowest to the highest as well. Yeah. And so meeting that diversity is also an opportunity, and we call it an opportunity because one of the things that we find is that when we reach young kids, they start to excel in terms of their ability to stay in school. The piece that we always have to bridge is the family part, to help families understand their role as the first teacher in helping their kids.
Sure.
But it is a little more costly because you have to deal with language. One of the things that the schools see more often today is older kids coming in with language differences, and also not having had educational opportunity that's equal to what we're getting. So bridging both of those things. But I still find it a good deal, a success for us. And as you say, it's that investment, and that investment is really important. And as we work on these policies, we really do see a lot different. We passed a system of care a policy initiative for the coming year. And that means that all of these special programs that we have, that we work with, used to look at them from the county to the school. Now we're going to be looking at them with the school, and that means that those children that may be identified with challenges, they're going to get services quickly, early identified, making it means a lot in early mental health identification. Those are very critical times. So the county taxpayers have supported us, and we should say thank you for that support, because it's really needed, and it's a very important aspect in terms of how to fund the school and its lion's share, and how we try and look at those dollars as partnering. We do a lot on infrastructure. That's another piece that we have a challenge, because as you grow, where are the places now that we're going to have the future schools or the future classrooms, and we have to think innovatively about that too.
Sure. Well, as an educator and as a Fairfax County resident, I'm extremely proud of what you and the board and the school board have done to, I think, make a exemplary educational system. And it takes a lot of cooperation, it takes a lot of commitment in order to do that. I think it is the case that if you have a young person, however you then describe that young person, there's a place in Fairfax County schools for them.
That's exactly right.
And
yes.
And that's the way it needs to be. We truly, they say, leave no child behind. We truly leave no child behind.
We don't.
Yeah.
And that's also looking at how you do it. It's amazing. The classroom of today is a different classroom of yesterday. And I note, for example, Penny Gross has had lots of crowding in her area. And what you normally did, you went out and bought 10 acres of land or 5 acres of land, and you put a school. And instead, they repurposed a commercial building. They separated the early and the older elementary grades, and now they have an upper elementary grade in a commercial building. They have all of it. We always said, well, how are you going to deal with the recreational aspect? Oh, they figured it out. But the learning that goes on is still the learning that's needed for children. And so you do have to adapt, and that's very important, because we are a different county than my 40-some years ago, in which we were spread out everywhere. We could find space everywhere. There were demographics of people in different corners. Now it gets tighter, and so we have a lot more. We have a school site designated for Tyson's Corner, which is building, and a lot of folks are thinking, well, there won't be families with children in Tyson's Corner because it's going to be so built up. Well, guess what? Families live in urban centers too.
Sure, exactly.
Children live in urban centers, so we'll be looking at an urban classroom. What does that look like for it? But the important thing is the learning, and the success for families and their children has to be the same.
Talk a little more about the committee that you all have put together between the school board and the board of supervisors, because I think that's unique and special.
Well, it has been a very engaging and exciting, it's successful children and youth policy team. And so that's why that title gets you right to what we do. We sit down with 2 school board members and 2 county board members and all of the policy staff that deal with all of our issues. And we go through what are the critical issues in reaching a school and county services. And it is a new model that's really going around the nation, and we have joined an alliance that comes out of Berkeley, Seattle, Washington, lots of other communities. We've had an opportunity to work with some of those folks. And what it does, Ken, is it really makes you think about when you're developing a policy, are you leaving anything out that is going to be critically needed? We have the police sitting at the table. We have the juvenile justice system sitting at the table. We have the human services of every dimension sitting at the table. So now, when we make a policy and it affects education, the school board members with their aligned people are sitting there too, and the decisions are making sense. We're sitting ready to go forth and move through the pre-K program that we want. So we all know on both sides of the aisle what our responsibilities are. I think another one that has been an extremely successful one is the juvenile justice. It started through us. We did the juvenile justice system did a policy analysis of what was happening in their juvenile justice system, and what they were seeing was Black and brown kids, youth, were the most often that were coming to their system. And I must give Bob Birmingham, the director there, credit. He looked at it and he said, you know, this isn't what we should be doing. The judges agreed. And now they have restructured juvenile justice. And matter of fact, the places where we used to send them in the restructuring are really now with not enough, too much room. We don't send kids to some closed off place or a jail as for behavior that happens at early age and in school or while they're in school.
Sure.
So we want to make sure that those kids are going to be able to get back into the system, continue their learning, and come out on the right side. So out of the SKIP program, it's been really a forward-thinking, but it's a very good, healthy engagement to have all of the leadership as well as the policy team workers sitting there helping us not go off and write a policy that may work for a couple of months or a couple of years, but looking long-term. What are we looking for? What is the problem? How do we solve it?
You know, Cathy, the other thing I like about it is if you look in the past how this happened, you'd have these various silos of programs that would develop, and then we'd take the poor citizen who didn't understand the bureaucracy anyway to try to transfer, to try to deal among those silos. Now you're saying let's the professionals cut down the silos, and then the citizen can interact with the appropriate service.
That's exactly right, and you see it so clearly, and you see it with a problem with a child in school, and the person that is facing with that child knows who the Fairfax County person is, and they are working together to make sure they solve it. They keep going, and you can put it in any dimension you name, that there is a partner sitting there. And you know, we laugh about the committee meetings because you can imagine there are a lot of people in this committee structure, but you have anyone that has any engagement with children in that room. And that includes our nonprofit organizations that support the family, the Fairfax structure. So it really is an investment that really works well, an investment of all of our time spending together to talk about the policies, and then when it's time to implement it, the people are really ready to move forward. So it's been exciting. The work that we've been doing with the Alliance has also been helpful because it tells us some of the best practices that others are using around the country. And I think you attended the John Powell initiative from the Alliance. And his institute is really phenomenal because now it says, you know, if you're going to pass a budget and you're going to address a policy, you need to be looking, as you said, have we really connected this policy and looked at everything that's going to be affected by it? And is it going to be as racially equitable? Is it going to be socially equitable? And that helps us spend those dollars well, helps us deliver the services better. And I want to commend the staff for being receptive because it's hard sometimes to make those kind of changes.
Easier to protect your turf than it is to
That's
get outside.
That's right. You said, well, I know what I'm doing. And you say, well, that's not good enough. You need to know what everybody else is doing and how we're going to do it together.
The practical matter is that when you get to be a county of 1.2 million or whatever we are now, I mean, we're enormous. We're bigger as countries
That's
are,
right.
and certainly big as states. But it gets down to the point of, okay, these are the things we want and think the services the citizens desire, but it has a price tag. And in Virginia, there's a great deal of limitation in terms of local government's ability to raise money. As a county, your primary source of money is your property tax. You get back a little bit of sales tax, but otherwise you don't get any income tax at all.
We get no income.
And so how is it that you to deal with these costs in the future? And I know that you and the school board have struggled with that this year, and you've come to a recommendation that's going to be up to the citizens now to decide on, and that is the whole big T word, tax.
That's exactly.
And we can't be afraid to say it. These things do have cost. They do have returns, and that's why I wanted to talk initially about what are the returns on this. But the alternative of an option of a sales tax or a meals tax.
Well, the meals tax has been around a long time, and as you know, when the General Assembly gave it to us, they said we had to go to the citizens and ask them, and rightfully so. It's an okay thing. It's interesting. Cities and towns get a chance to implement this by simply their voting on it. Counties are different, and so that's the structure. But you know, the meals tax failed in 1992, and it's unfortunate that it did, because I think we're at a better time now. And if we talk about why it's needed, as you say, we have revenue sources, but they're constrained revenue sources. Property tax is the primary, real estate tax. And as we continue to grow, property can grow and be higher taxed without us ever moving the pen. And that has some impact on the community. So 2 years ago, looking at the presentation of the budget, I looked at it, and one thing that Ed Long said in his presentation is the bond raters are telling us we really need to have a more diverse revenue source as we continue to grow with population and services and costs. We're now a $7 billion budget collectively with all revenue sources that come in. And we recognize that there is a welcoming and generous community willing to pay the property tax, but we have to be balanced on that. And we need to care about how the services delivery can be sustained and followed. So the meals tax is on the ballot. The board did vote to place it on the ballot, and we will use it to address the services in general. There will be consideration that 70% of it will go to schools, one of the greatest demands that we have. They get over half of our entire budget of revenue sources that come through taxes and those sources. So I think it's a good thing to do. I think it's important to do. And I think, you know, we're a AAA bond rated. And I think you pay attention when the raters tell you what may be some of your, not deficits, but challenges that you may have. So we will ask the public to please make that a yes vote for us so that we can move forward and try to find ways to help plan and deliver on a consistent basis. Usually what you find us doing, we try and deal with the tax, then we find ourselves in very dark times cutting them back. We never get back to the level, and that's when we find that the service you're delivering is not an efficient way to deliver that service. So this is going to be a difficult one. It's interesting, the conversation always starts as, well, why do you need it? And in a sense, that's the right question.
It's an okay question.
It's an okay question because we feel that we can justify. Fairfax County is recognized as an outstanding county in terms of the service delivery, who we reach, how we reach them. Most of the agencies are recognized around the state and around the country as outstanding performance. Well, that costs us something. Right. We bring in great people, they do great work. They have a return value that comes out of that, and it comes in the services they deliver and the way we support them. I really think that the meals tax is an important part for us. We will not have another revenue tax. The interesting thing is noting that we don't get income tax. Right. And so a lot of people think, well, you're a very rich county. That's the only thing we ever hear. We're a very rich county. Well, that goes to Richmond, and should be doled back to us, but it doesn't all come back. We only get about less than 30% of it back.
Right. And some of it doesn't come back because part of the requirement of the state is to try to equalize the opportunity
that's
across
right.
the state.
And
but the other thing too is that people are realizing in Fairfax tax increases all the time by the increased value of their property.
that's exactly right.
They pay a bigger property tax every year just for the fact, even when the rate stayed the same.
That's right.
Because the value of the property goes up. So what are the other ways in which people can, in some regards, have an option in terms of how much they pay? And that's with the meals tax.
Yeah.
It's not something new.
No.
If you go to Vienna,
It's,
if you go to Herndon, and you look at your little chip that you get from your waiter, it's got a tax on there.
yeah.
Only when you go into Fairfax County restaurants do
That's
you
it.
not pay that.
And that's the interesting part.
Yeah.
And this discussion this year highlights the fact, because people said, I don't pay a meals tax. And said, yes, you do. All you do, look at the, and once they recognize that, they realize they are already making this choice. They never drive through Vienna and say, well, I think I'm going to buy my meal in Fairfax.
Right.
They've never gotten there because it's not, it's not the choice that you make. I've had some folks say, oh gosh, it's a regressive tax. And I said, not in its true sense. It's regressive in the way it arrives there, but it is not an unequal tax or an onerous tax on any population, because you can make a choice. Now it has, it goes to the restaurants that are very clearly restaurant. It applies in the grocery stores where you will eat the meal in the grocery store. It's packaged in a certain way, and those are the little things that are there. So I think the board has made the right decision by placing it to the voters and letting us make that decision, the residents make that decision. And the other part of that is tourists and everybody else will help us pay that.
Correct.
Not as we have with our property tax, it's only those of us that live here that pay that. So they get the joy and excitement out of coming to one of our great restaurants and a great meal, and help us keep the place going the way we really need it to do.
And with more tourism in
Oh, we are
Fairfax,
growing.
it's a big deal. And more good restaurants bring more people in here to eat. But the argument that's, some of the restaurants, of course, oppose this idea. But we need to say to the public, the restaurants don't pay it. They collect it. And they get a percentage for the collection of it. It's paid
clear.
by the consumer. And I will be working actively this fall to try to convince people that this is a good idea. I've looked at this for a long time, and I've looked at the wonderful services we have in Fairfax and the need to support them. And I trust that we're going to get people understanding it, talking about it, and then campaigning on behalf of it, because I think it's the right thing to do in Fairfax.
Well, I appreciate your help, because we can't go but so far in terms of putting it on the ballot and making sure that people understand it. But I do agree that and I understand the role the restaurants play. You know, it's more the nature not to accept taxes as the thing that you have. I always share with people that there are two very important quotes, and it's tax is the price you pay for a civilized society.
Right.
And the power to tax has the possibility to destroy. So we try and be balanced in this, and we think this is a good balance. We think it's a very good balance. As you say, everybody around the region has it. It's only to the west of us do we not see anyone with that tax. And every municipality that you talk to and the elected officials say, guess what? It's a no-brainer to us.
Right.
Why haven't you done it sooner is really the question. I think the residents, I hope the residents will be positive toward it. We will have what we call the English description of why and how we're doing it, so that they can understand it. But I think the most important thing is when we look at the budget, we have that part where we talk about, let's not destroy the population of residents we have by being able to balance it with the other taxes that they pay. Yeah.
Cathy, I appreciate the work that you and the Board of Supervisors have done in bringing this to the attention of the voters, and I hope that through our discussions like this and our education that people will come to realize it's an important move for Fairfax and its future, and that they will approve it. So thank you for being with us tonight. I always appreciate your good work.
Thank you for your work. You've been my great partner.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll see it on the ballot in November. Let's talk about it and make sure we understand it. It's important for our future and for our children, most especially in our educational programs. Thanks for joining us on Virginia Report. Join us again next time. So long.